Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Buck Stops Here. I am Catherine Murray. Well, given all the complexities in the world today, it certainly makes investing even more complex as well. We, of course, have shifting fears of influence. And I wanted to really bring some thought provoking research to you to think about near term as well as longer term. And for that, Louis Gav is joining us. He is the founder and CEO of Gavekal. Louis, great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. Good to catch up.
Thank you. You as well. I really always appreciate hearing what you have to say and reading your research of yours and your team, of course, because it is so big picture in thinking, and then we can kind of drill down into some of the specific areas that might be of interest to investors, such as commodities. But let's start big picture in terms of how you're seeing different alliances play out. Of course, Russia and China is what I'm thinking about here, and how that impacts Canada, the United States, and other developed nations. How are you looking at this today?
Oh, look, books could be written about this. In fact, I did write one 5 years ago. Not to plug my
Hmm.
my work or anything, but look, I think you're absolutely right that an important development of the past few weeks has been, on the one hand, a very warm welcome that Xi Jinping offered Putin. In fact, he hugged him publicly, which was really the first time Xi Jinping hugged anyone. And immediately after that, the U.S. obviously slapped China with a bunch of tariffs. Um, Now, what's fascinating to me is that I think if this had occurred 3 or 4 months ago, Chinese equities would have puked. If you remember 3 or 4 months ago, any piece of news that was bad for China, the market just went down 3 or 4%. And here it didn't. The Chinese equity market completely brushed it off. So it's either perhaps that foreigners have done selling China, or that the market realizes that we're moving now into a very different type of environment. And I think the big difference in the environment is we're now in a world in which people are realizing that China's the dominant industrial superpower. Um, they're realizing this, of course, because of the tariffs. The tariffs highlight it. I mean, the whole point of the tariffs is saying, look, we can't compete with China on solar panels, on batteries, on electric vehicles. For somebody like the Biden administration to come out, if you go back just a few years ago, the Biden administration was all about the Green New Deal. It was all about
Right.
the danger of climate change. It was all about how we needed to get the world together to deal with the problem of carbon. So for that very administration that was so gung ho on climate change, for it to now turn around and put massive barriers on electric vehicles, massive barriers on solar panels, massive barriers on batteries, tells you that all of a sudden they think, forget climate change. That's no longer the threat. The real threat is China. That's what we have to focus on. If the administration thinks that, it must mean that industrially speaking, China is now far ahead of everybody else.
So, what does that really mean, though, in terms of how this can play out, Louis? Because the numbers that you talk about are absolutely astounding. I did not know this, and I don't think many people do, that China produces 54% of the world's steel, 55% aluminum. The solar market, 70%, whereas the US is 2%. And on the steel front, US is only 4.3%. It sounds as though we are far too behind to even ever catch up. I don't even know what that would look like.
Well, look, I'm never going to say the U.S. can't catch up because the U.S. is a superpower in its own right. But I think we've seen the weakness of the Western world's industrial might through the Russia-Ukraine war, right? When Russia invaded Ukraine, the perception in the Western world was we're going to flood Ukraine with weapons, and we're going to blow apart Russia, which is really a country, a gas station masquerading as a country, to use the McCain's words. Um, Fast forward 2 years, and Russia alone is massively outproducing the West in all the weapons, in tanks, in cannons, in artillery shells. So I think we've, come to the limit of the deindustrialization of the Western world, and with that, that triggers massive demand for commodities all over the world, and especially in the Western world. If the Western world is going to reindustrialize, it's going to take tons of copper, it's going to take steel, it's going to take all sorts of things. And so I think as we've put on these tariffs on China, as we've realized that actually we've reached the logical end of deindustrialization, then sure enough, commodities are starting to go ballistic.
Right. And we're seeing that in the prices for sure. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.